Hey everybody, Alex here, and what I'd like to do with you in this video is talk to you about mulching. If you don't mulch, and you're able to, I'd encourage you to, because it kind of solves a lot of problems up front that you don't have to waste your time on later. I am cheap and I'm lazy, and so what I don't want to do over the summer is waste my time doing things that I could just prevent up front. What is a mulch and what are its functions? So what a mulch is it's any carbon-heavy organic biomass, usually plant-based, that accomplishes a few things. Mulching accomplishes three major functions, and for me, in order of importance, one is weed suppression, two is moisture retention, and three is the addition of nutrients into the soil. You can use leaves, you can use straw, you can use grass clippings, you can use weeds that you've dried out. I've even heard of gardeners using shredded paper as a mulch. If you have access to a big pile of shredded paper, that's something you could definitely do. So as far as moisture retention, mulching really helps. I have not mulched anything this year, but you can see I just watered some okra and peppers that I just put in the ground. But it's a blazing day today. It's supposed to hit 85, and over the course of just a few hours, they're gonna look like these tomatoes, which I watered last evening. And there you can tell they're already kind of drying out. So if you don't mulch, then over the summer, you're probably gonna be scrambling to be watering all the time. Now, my very favorite mulch in the whole wide world is last season's leaves. So if you have any number of trees in your yard or near your yard, you're probably doing a whole bunch of raking in the fall. And I'll see my neighbors putting them out in bags, and once in a while I'll say, hey, I'll take your leaves. And I just pile them up just as soon as you rake them. And I leave them over the course of the fall, winter, and spring. You want them exposed to the elements, and I'm going to show you why this is. What's special about leaves is that if you leave them in a mound over the course of several months and expose them to the elements, they start to form these layers, these sort of foliated layers, almost like cards. And as a result, leaves really check all the boxes when it comes to what you want in a good mulch. So let me show you what's so good about them as I mulch a couple of plants. So let me show you what I mean by this sort of foliating or sheets or cards. So when you kind of start digging into this mound of leaves, you'll see that they form these chunks. Oh, here's a good example. So you can see this big sort of sheet of leaves is sort of like cohesive. It's kind of like holding together. What's nice about that is that you can actually take multiple sheets of this stuff and you can kind of interlock them around a plant, or you can kind of overlap them a little bit. And so that suppresses your weeds really effectively because it blocks out a lot of light. It also retains your moisture really well. And leaves do have a fair amount of carbon, nitrogen, all kinds of good stuff that can eventually be worked into the soil. But it's really this structure, it's this sort of foliating, sort of carding structure that I really like in my leaf litter. Or even if it's a chunk, sometimes you can kind of peel it a little bit and you can turn it into that sheet. All right, so I've got some squash here that I've got growing. This is some yellow squash. And this stuff works great for squashes because they tend to wither out in the heat of the day. And so this is a pretty good use of mulch. So I'm just kind of gonna sort of interlock those sheets or those cards of leaves here. Kind of make sure that they're nice and snug on the plant. And I'll also fill in the gaps that are in between plants just to kind of help with that weed suppression. Any place where weeds can get a foothold, they definitely will. But you get a nice big sheet like that. Look at that. Just really get that nice and snugged up there. Now we'll make sure that guy is nice and covered up and protected. I do want to point out that you don't want to use this for every possible plant. So I'm only using these leaves on plants that are not susceptible to slug damage. Slugs really like this leaf litter. So what I would not use this around is any brassicas, so like kale, broccoli, cauliflower, probably not around lettuce or any other kinds of greens, or any sort of crops that you would consider to be a slug susceptible. And this really reduces my need to water the plants all that regularly. And in the heat of the hottest days of the summer, I can usually go 3 or even 4 days without really having to do any watering. So this really saves me a lot of trouble later on in the season. You can use the leaves of just about any trees to mulch with, except for one. There might be other exceptions. If there are, let me know in the comment section. But the one that you definitely should not use is the leaves from black walnut trees. They produce something called juglans. It's some kind of a protein or a tannin or something that gets into the soil, and it kills everything else around it. So you'll notice if you're walking or driving past a black walnut tree, you'll see it's just a barren, scorched earth around it because it's preventing the germination of any plants. So you really wouldn't want to use black walnuts, but you can use the leaves of just about any other tree. So like I said, leaf litter really checks all the boxes in my book as far as a good mulch goes. Awesome for weed suppression, moisture retention, and for nutrient addition to the soil. So if you have access to a whole bunch of leaves, consider putting them in a big pile and then take advantage of that sort of foliation or sort of carding effect that we see when we leave those leaves for a while. So hope you try it and hope you found this useful.